for some people, like the whole concept of production rate seems pretty new, right? Seems like something that's for the last few years, at least in painting, right? I still remember the first time I ever saw a production rate. It was in 1996, and it was a painter, right? It was CertaPro, right? I happened to, be around a CertaPro guy at the moment. I never worked for CertaPro, but I was around a CertaPro guy, and he was like showing me how he quoted something and had this giant, thick laptop and opened it up, and it was basically Excel, right? It wasn't app; it was just a spreadsheet. He would duplicate the spreadsheet, but it had all the math already. So he basically, square footage of the house, you know, height of walls, linear foot of baseboard, like all these things. You get all those measurements. I don't remember exactly what measurements he input, but you had to get measurements and put it in, and it would spit out a number. And that was
Hmm.
it. That was the number. That's what it was going to cost.
Yeah.
And it broke it down into how much to pay the sub, how much material should cost, how much paint, how much prep, how much his profit would be, like all of that stuff. It broke it down like
To
right.
this day, CertaPro is a fantastic system. It's
Yeah,
just like
it is.
anything else.
But,
It's
but I mean,
like,
think about that. Like right now, today, some of the people that are listening to this podcast, right, and we're recording it now. But someone it's going to take a week or two for this thing airs, right? And then someone might not see it then. There might be somebody 6 months later listening to this, and at that very moment, somebody listening to this doesn't have production rates. They're like, "What are production rates? This is brand new." No, it's not. It's 30 years old, at least.
oh
I
yeah,
saw I saw it 30 years ago in painting. Now, obviously, for things like steel and fuel, bigger industries, pharma, they've known production rates for a long time. You think about like how much does a bottle of aspirin cost? It's production rates, right?
right.
We figured out how much does it cost for the bottle, the
Sure.
packaging, and all the pills in there to ship it and produce it, blah blah blah, with the profit, and that's it, right? And then they sell it to the store to price, and the store adds their markup on top of that. That's the supplier's production rates and then the store's production rates. Same
Absolutely.
thing, right?
Yep.
So like Sherwin Williams has to have their production rates on how much does it cost to make a gallon of A100 or super paint or whatever they have, and the dyes and the holding cost and the shipping cost and everything else. So they have their production rates on how much it costs for them to sell a gallon of paint to you, the painter. Then you
Yeah.
have to take that and make your production cost. Like this is not a new concept. This has been
Right.
around for a very, very, very long time. Yeah, I mean, pen and paper was probably the way. The first digital version I ever saw was in like '96 with CertaPro on a laptop. But that was when I didn't even ask him like how long they've had it. He was just using it like it was a normal thing, you know. Now it was one of those brick of laptops back then were giant, and he had to have like an inverter in his car to even like turn the thing on. I'm sure that battery lasted
Yeah.
all of whopping 10 minutes, but
Yeah. I
still,
mean, but
was pricing
CertaPro,
on the
they're
job in the '90s,
yeah, and
bro.
they're trying to make it simple for their franchisees. I mean,
Correct.
they've been doing they have been doing it for a very, very long time. And what it allows the head office to, to set those, just like in so many other businesses, to set
Yeah.
the pricing structures based on, just like McDonald's has a price for a hamburger, wherever it may be, they set the prices. People just don't go and, you don't give somebody a quote on a hamburger.
I know.
You charge what you charge for that hamburger because your franchisee tells you to do that because they've done the research to know what the market
And
can bear.
there are like market adjustments in city to city, but that's not about the
Absolutely.
hamburger. That's about the real estate cost, right? So like, you go to one McDonald's, maybe this hamburger is
Sure.
$40, and in another city is maybe 350, right? So and painters will have to do that too. Maybe depending on where someone lives, like the cost of shipping paint to some store, maybe like I would imagine that paint in Hawaii is more expensive than it is, right? Because it's got to get shipped over there. They're not producing in Hawaii; they're shipping it.
Right.
So
Right.
like you get to there, or like the Keys or something like that, or something remote in the mountains, it's gonna be more
Yeah.
expensive to get that product there. So the product will be more expensive. So therefore your production rates will be more expensive. Same product but different cost of getting the product.
Yeah.
That changes things. You know.
Yeah. And that was, I think that's one of the benefits of being in a franchise system, is that,
They'll give you that paint plus the collections more locally.
right out of the gate, somebody doesn't really need to know a whole lot about painting in
Yeah.
order to use their, whatever it is, their takeoff
Mhm.
sheet or whatever it is. A lot of them are still using, a legal sized big takeoff sheet that where you
Mhm.
put in the measurements and it takes you, an hour to put it all together. But even them, a lot of them are still presenting on site. Customer waits an hour while you do it in the car,
Mhm.
and then you do the presentation right away. So
That
yeah,
you
a lot of those
if you use one of
systems
the
are
modern
really
systems,
valuable.
you can put those things together in like 5 minutes now, though. With it, provided you've already done the math on the production rates.
Yeah, and that's where I'm looking forward to AI participating more in that,
Yeah.
so that you have, in my town, I consider about 4 other painting companies to be, we're kind of colleagues, right? We're kind of at the same level of
Okay.
professionalism, and we all know each other, and we support one another, and all of that. If our pricing plan was similar across the board, we would be competing for the really fun part, which is who can give the customer the best experience. And so I'm looking forward to sort of that day when we don't have to talk as much about that piece to the puzzle. Uh, I'm sure it'll always be a somewhat topic of discussion, but I'm looking forward more to the day where we can do just better presentations to have a greater experience for people.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot, and I mean, you and I know this, but there's just a lot of psychology and the persuasion of this, and without even being like we talked about earlier, like not high pressure closing, but like, yeah, there's a part that's the numbers in this production rate, but like the lion's share of this is about trust and process and customer experience and just all those other buzzwords that are not price. I know you've seen this a lot in the space, but like I commonly will hear, well, I can't sell at that price. And then I'll give you an example. I'm not going to name names, company or personal names, but I got a client that for the last year and a half, we've been working together. He's been struggling. Like the numbers have just not made sense. And so like, but I found this out very early on. And he was on our lowest marketing plan and we were doing good, like good ROI on that, but he still wasn't making money. I'm like, we got to dive in. We got to figure this out. So we jump on a call, and then I find out he's pitching at 40% gross profit margins, sometimes discounting a percent or two or three. And then sometimes operationally with the leakage, it might actually be 35 or 30 gross profit, not net profit. Right. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, that'll do it. That's
Yeah.
just not the numbers we want. And I was
Yeah.
like, man, we got to get these prices. Like you already know the rates here. We
Right.
just got to get you a 50% gross profit margin. Just change that will be good. And he resisted me for like a year. Like
Yes.
every month of meetings, like wouldn't do it. And he kept saying the same things like, I can't price like that. I'm already getting beat up on price. Took a while, took some shifts. We helped him with a few process things, and some sales coaching stuff. And then we got to a place where he finally actually changed it. He was and so like I think it was like December or January. So pretty recently he changed it. And I was talking to him just a couple weeks ago. I was like, "So how's this going?" He's like, "Dude, I should have done this sooner. Like I'm not closing less. I'm actually closing more, and I'm charging more." I was like, "Told you." You know what I mean? But it's like now, but the great part is now he's got an extra 10% at least that he's getting back into his budget to actually have profit and comfort
And
and
what has he changed about his process and his presentation?
not much, right? The prices and probably some confidence. You know what I mean? I know that I gave him some tips and stuff here for sure, but loosely he had the right stuff in place, right?
Hmm.
Loosely, he was doing an in-home consultation, pricing on the spot, had good, better, best options, all that kind of standardish stuff. Like you said, the standard stuff today. He's doing all that. The prices were just off, and I think if anything, I just don't think he felt confident about the price.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean. And that's huge. Like
Yeah.
if
The first
you don't
time,
believe it, no one else is going to believe it either.
the first, the first time you learn it. It's almost like using a credit card for the first time.
It's
It's like,
weird. Yeah.
oh, it worked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And um and I found that frequently. Certainly there is a ceiling to what the market can bear. And
Oh yeah,
certainly you
it's not like
yeah,
going to take $1,000 job and turn it to $100,000 job. Like
no, no,
no,
but again, the as far as what we ask for, the price, it really just depends on who we happen to be sitting in front of that day. And we may think that we've done everything we can to attract the right market. And so we drive to the beautiful, wonderful neighborhood. We drive to what we think is going to be our ideal customer. And they're in, that expensive house. And we just feel like we've nailed it. But, we get in there and it turns out that that person is quite price sensitive. And then you prejudge and you think, okay, well, gosh, they asked for a major discount. I can't charge that much. And then you go to, you go to the home of a blue collar worker who, really appreciates the value of hard work. And and that person turns out to be an ideal customer. No problem with the pricing. So the pricing is more about, in general, kind of
It's more about them, not you.
who it is you're sitting with. It's not about you, it is about them, but what we ask, we do have to be kind of responsible for. And
Mm.
so, if you provide excellent service, if you provide something that's over and above, if you have a color consultant that you offer free of charge like I do, if you have a cleaning crew that you're willing to send in after you've done the job, then, you know, you're you're trying to deliver as much value as you possibly can. And,
Mhm.
that should attract, for the most part, people that are going to, that
But
want
there's
to
like the
pay
like
in
the
that.
law of averages, though. It's gonna happen on the production side and the sales side, you know?
Yeah, it's gonna happen. So it's yeah, it is a hard lesson to learn. But price, oh gosh, I could talk about price forever. Just how,
I actually
h-
geek out on pricing psychology. I spent a few years, like, reading a bunch of, like, Harvard and Yale studies on, like, pricing psychology. There's some
what's
really
the
interesting ones out there.
what's the cheapest bottle of water you've ever bought? Cheapest.
It depends on time frame, right? So, I mean, the cheapest
Okay,
bottle of water I probably ever bought was probably 25 cents, but that would have
right.
been, like,
But what's the most expensive bottle of water you ever bought?
$8, I think,
R-
probably,
And
give or
and
take.
what's the difference between the two?
Decades and location. So
Right?
gas station 25, 30 years ago, or Disney yesterday, right?
Yep. There you go.
Location and timing. So price goes up overall. That's actually, I think, like, if you are talking about pricing, which I don't like spending tons of time on pricing, and as far as like how to sell, at least it's a thing that it's required. But I
Well, there
think
was
one,
a time though when pricing went down. Like there was a time
of
too.
course,
There was a
yeah,
time where we
up and
were
down,
like
yeah,
where the
gas has gone
time
up and down,
wasn't proper because, you know,
yeah,
uh, right pricing right now is only maybe average pricing even in the painting business is only about 15-20% more than it was in the 90s.
okay, yeah.
You know, even early 2000s, it hasn't gone up that much.